Looking at a plant that you've never grown before, there's no real way to know how much THC is going to be in it. Many farms, all they're shooting for is how high a THC number I can get, which leads us into the situation with labs, padding numbers. And actually, we've been approached by labs that are a little bit more unscrupulous than others, saying, hey, this tested at 14%, but we can fix that if you like it. Throw us a little extra cash, we'll fix it.
Testing for potency and purity is becoming the norm in states with legal weed. But there are concerns within the industry about corruption between growers and the labs that test their products.
So you basically went from busting pot growers and dealers to being one yourself?
Correct, yeah.
In 2012, Griffin Lott left his job as a sheriff's deputy in Texas. He now works as a grower in Washington State's booming legal cannabis industry. But even after switching teams, he's still a stickler for playing by the rules. Lott thinks some growers are colluding with labs to fudge their test results.
THC is the thing in marijuana that gets you high.
Yep.
What are you seeing with customers in terms of what they look for when they go to a store and see the THC readout on the packaging?
They like to see THC contents at 20% and higher. It's the equivalent of going to the liquor store and finding the highest proof alcohol and just buying it based on that.
Crooked testing also hurts labs that want to be honest. Charlie Town, a manager at Goat Labs in Washington State, says growers have pressured him to inflate the THC content of their pot.
So do you have clients come in who are blatantly saying, we need this to test a certain rate, make it happen?
I've had one phone call before that somebody was shopping around for a laboratory, and they even used that term. And I turned them away. I don't want anything to deal with them.
Do you think that was a random, like one guy was shopping around, or do you get the sense that that's happening more often than not?
I think that's happening more often than not.
To demonstrate the problem, Charlie retested a jar of cannabis that was advertised as being especially potent.
So what are the results from your test?
It claims that it was 30% THC, and we just tested it and ran it, and it's 18.9% THC.
And there's no way that that's a rounding error or some sort of calibration. That's just flat out false results.
That's false results.
Some people might think, oh, what's the harm? Why does it matter if somebody's inflating the numbers just a little bit?
To me, it's about integrity. I mean, again, we're a new and burgeoning industry. We want to be on the up and up. If they're willing to fudge potency numbers, who's to say that they're not willing to fudge pesticide or mold or mildew contaminant numbers? The two biggest ones in the industry are Eagle 20 and Avid. Those are both neurotoxins. They're basically chemical weapons, okay? This is stuff that's sprayed on plants routinely in the agricultural world, but they're not for human consumption. Black mold, the same thing. People smoke that, they end up with a disastrous lung infection that can actually end up killing them.
Is there anybody from the state coming in to make sure that when you test your samples that it's going to come back accurate on THC content?
It's not anything that's done on a regular basis. We do proficiency tests within the lab.
So if you do it right once, the state doesn't check back to make sure that you're doing it every time.
It's really the honor system right now.
Washington is considering tightening its rules. A spokesman for the state said a secret shopper program provides oversight of the labs, and it has turned up deviations in testing results, which they are investigating. The problem isn't limited to just Washington. 8 states and Washington, D.C. have passed recreational marijuana laws. An additional 21 states have some form of medical marijuana. The lab rules vary from state to state, and some require no testing at all. This can be a serious issue for patients who need precise doses and pot that's free of pesticides and mold.
Do you worry at the national level? Is there a federal debate that's happening right now about whether or not the country should change its marijuana laws, that this kind of deception is going to influence people's decision on the issue?
Certainly. In other industries like, meat, dairy, that kind of thing, you have agencies like the USDA that are testing those products on a national level. They have a national standard for testing all of those products for every state. That's honestly what we need in the marijuana world, is have one way of testing every marijuana product that is consumed by the public in any state that it might be.